here,
Okay,
so it's the after show.
Right.
But obviously, we're gonna keep talking about Caitlyn Jenner. The conversation I thought was the most complicated of any I've seen on television, which sort of concerns me because it's hard. So many layers. It's hard to digest these things on TV. But the one thing that we didn't really get into, it's a hard thing to talk about, was that religious issue that we end up just kind of fighting about.
Why didn't we get into it? I mean, because we had to get to the segment on super gluing teeth in the head. You had all the time in the world for the transsexual in the front row to talk about how everybody else who disagrees with him, her, whatever, are bigots and patriarchy and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Dr. Drew, if you want to have a serious conversation, how about having just enough people to actually allow for a conversation? I mean, let's be honest. What you want on your program are sound bites. You don't want conversations. That's your audience. That's the audience you're shooting for. You're not shooting for my audience. You're not shooting for the people in this program. On this program, we will spend an entire hour on one single topic. It actually requires people to have an attention span more than 39 seconds. And yet, for most modern American media, you don't even try to reach people who have an attention span that goes beyond that. You don't even bother. Because there's 100 and, well, I don't know how many thousands, hundreds, thousands of channels there are. I don't know. I've never even looked at what I have. I just need to be able to make sure to see the Tour de France. That's honestly the only reason I ever got cable was so that I could see the Tour de France and right now the Criterion de Dauphiné and the Tour de Suisse, and yeah, I'm a cycling fan. So that, but I don't even know how many there others are. So I understand you've got competitors, and if you go past like 30 seconds without tickling the ears, but the problem is then you should recognize you shouldn't bother to try to address meaningful issues, because meaningful issues can't be addressed in 30 seconds. That's the problem we have in our society today, is this kind of madness that you actually think that this was you even said on the program that you thought this was a in-depth discussion. I'm just like, really? Popping little jokes from the one guy and this kind of stuff. This is in-depth discussion. I don't know that you know what in-depth discussion is, if you can describe it in that way, because it wasn't even close to in-depth discussion.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight, because I do want, James and I got into it, and I don't want to.
Sam, you and I did not get into it. You cut me off. You attacked me personally. And we never had any meaningful exchange on anything. You just simply said, well, I'm a Christian, or I'm spiritual, but I don't believe that. There was no interaction. Do you really think that's interaction? I mean, I dared to quote the words of Jesus. I dared quote the words of Jesus. And the immediate reaction was just, well, what I did, and I know I did this purposefully. If you quote the words of Jesus in the very center of the high temple of secular humanism, which is the cable news, CNN, HLN, etc., you're going to get a violent counter reaction. But Sam, it's because of your rebellion against the Jesus of Scripture. That's what it is. And at least I'll tell you that straight up. You are in rebellion against your Creator. You don't get to decide. We're going to have the other young lady say that we get to decide these things. No, if God has spoken, we don't get to decide. We're the creatures. He's the Creator. His word goes. We don't get to countermand him. So we didn't have an interaction. I'd like to have one. I'd like to hear what you you actually believe, because at times it's interesting. I was on with Jeff Durbin today and I was very honored to be the first guest on the new Apologia TV, as I like to correct them. And we went over a lot of this stuff, and so I think you're gonna enjoy that. And they even had a special guest on for me that I didn't know about. So I won't say anything more about that because I don't want to ruin the surprise. But they did have a really neat special guest on that joined us for a few minutes in the program. I guess they do a half-hour program that everyone will see, and then if you subscribe, then you can get the hour-long follow-up. Is how they're doing it. So I'm not sure when that all is going to be up, but I think it's still at apologiaradio.com. But I did have a little fun pointing out that even in their logo, the gamma appears a number of times that they know how to properly pronounce when it's there, just not when it's in their own name. So I had fun with that. Anyways, getting back to the subject, apologize for that. One of the things I noticed today on Apologia Radio was when you listen to the audio of our conversation, there were things that were said to me that I could never hear because I was on Skype. And, at one point, Dr. Drew said, what clash of worldviews? So I would love to have heard that and responded to that, but I couldn't. I couldn't hear it because of just the way things were set up, and, it didn't come across on Skype because I was speaking and so on and so forth. I'd love to have a conversation about those things, but Sam, we did not have an interaction. We didn't have an argument. You shouted me down. You took unfair shots, but we didn't have any meaningful exchange.
Respect someone else's belief. Like, I came from a very Christian upbringing. I have a lot of people in my family that are very religious, but here's the thing: I'm also surrounded with these people that are Christian that are also very accepting and loving.
Okay, which is supposed to be the Christian attitude,
and
right?
That's what I want.
Just a second. Accepting and loving of what? Sin? What? Why do you call someone Christian who is accepting and loving of something that Jesus died on a cross for? Sam, could Dr. Drew, could you answer that? How is it that you seem to insist, and you said this in the program, Sam, that I am to be loving when you won't discuss what loving means from a biblical perspective? Do you know what loving means? I can guarantee you something, both Sam and Dr. Drew, loving from a biblical perspective